Good evening, everyone. It is 6 o'clock on August 22nd, 2023, and time to begin this council committee meeting. We begin the meeting with the roll call, and Ms. Kittrell, if you would do that for us, please.
Vice Mayor Love.
Here.
Councilman Carter.
Present.
Councilman Fan.
Here.
Councilman Fennell.
Here.
Councilwoman George.
Here.
Councilman Hayes.
Present.
And Councilman Juvance.
Present.
Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you so much. You all, before you have the minutes from the August 8th, 2023 council committee meeting for your consideration for approval. Motion to approve by Councilman Hayes.
Second.
Second by Councilwoman George, and Vice Mayor Love has a correction.
I have three.
Oh, no.
I know. On page 4, at the very bottom, the title should say Assistant City Engineer instead of Assistants. Then, well, that was that was page 3, sorry.
Page 4 of the agenda.
Right. Then on page 5 of the agenda, page 4 of the minutes, under number 5, so I believe this is incorrect, as it says Councilwoman Juvance. So I think that should be probably Councilman. Oh, sorry. And then on the last page, page 6, under the second paragraph under the first bullet says that Ms. High McCauley stated she will continue researing. I think that should be researching.
You are good.
I'm just glad we have a school teacher on there.
20 years of teaching school.
All right. With those corrections, anything additional? Okay, all in favor of approving, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Minutes are unanimously approved. We'll move now to public recognition. This is the only period of public recognition we will have at this meeting because it is a council committee meeting. You are allowed to speak to any item, whether it's on the agenda or not. You'll have 5 minutes to speak, and we ask that you introduce yourself and give us your address for the record, please. So right now, public recognition is now open, and you may come forward if you'd like to speak.
My name is Nick Bruno, and my wife and I, Cece, have lived on Nickel Circle for 28 years. And we've lived in a lot of places, having been in the music industry, but I love Gallatin. It's my favorite place of all. And so, at the last meeting, I had an opportunity to address a situation that involved me as a young man growing up in New York City. And what happened to my beautiful Staten Island when the city fathers decided to put an ugly bridge in, and they ruined my beautiful neighborhood. And I have a fear that we're close to that happening here in Gallatin. And so I would like to present a couple of facts. I'm reading from a very familiar document. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That phrase, consent of the governed, has been discussed for many years. Of course, you all know that I'm reading from the Declaration of Independence. I read again. In political philosophy, the phrase consent of the governed refers to the idea that a government's legitimacy and moral right to use state power is justified and lawful only when consented to by the people or society over which that political power is exercised. I bring this up because I'm concerned about the upcoming vote on the Green Farm and annexing it into the city, and the proposal of 450 homes and the potential of maybe 1,000 automobiles coming in and out of a beautiful neighborhood. I would like to impress upon this council, and I thank you for the opportunity, but the citizens of Gallatin, the consent of the governed, remember that saying, the citizens of Gallatin that are particularly involved in this neighborhood are opposed to annexing the Green Farm and opposed to adding 450 homes and opposed to an additional perhaps 1,000 vehicles traveling up and down Lock 4. Not sure if you've ever sat at the stop sign on the corner of Lock 4 and Hancock Street, but it's almost unbearable right now, and it will be considerably worse. A brief story. A few weeks ago, maybe a month or so, I had a meeting in Hendersonville. My meeting was at 5:30, so I left my home on Nichols Circle at 4:45, which I thought was ample time to get to my meeting. Would you believe I was late because I couldn't get out of Gallatin because of the immense traffic? I don't know if you've ever tried to get on 386 by going down that way. You can't do it. And we're looking at increasing that maybe by 1,000 cars just in this one neighborhood. So here's my question to you fine people. Where do we draw the line? Where do we stop this insane growth in our beautiful city? Do we wait until every beautiful plot of green grass is consumed with a high-rise apartment or a gas station or a factory? Do you have a stopping place? I ask that in sincerity, and I would like to have an answer from someone. I close, excuse me, I close with this statement. For a democracy to function, and we are a democracy, it is essential that a government respects the people and takes them seriously. Not only those that have voted for that government, but all people. Furthermore, in order to exercise their democratic rights properly, people should be informed as fully as possible. I sincerely hope and pray that you take these words to heart. None of the people that are involved in this want this, so I know that's my time. I thank you very much for the opportunity.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Todd Alexander, 217 Strange Circle. Good to see you again. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I've missed the last couple meetings, and I hated to do so, but I was in the mountains of Panama building a church in a community where households get by on $100 a month. It certainly grounds you in our first world problems. I watched the meeting as best I could last week, airport Wi-Fi, if you know, you know. But I was watching it and listening to some of the interaction and the comments, and I'm not the smartest man in the room. I do not have all of the answers. I don't pretend to be, but I do know people, and what I want to talk about tonight, because I can't be here in 2 weeks, is there's a disconnect that the people feel when they're in this room. They fill this room and they share their reasons, and especially like with this annexation, it's been overwhelming, people against it. And in fact, outside of developers, I don't know if anybody has ever came and said, I'm all for this. If I'm wrong, forgive me, but it's not many. So they feel like they're not heard, and that's what they're crying out about. Nobody's listening to me. And so something that I started noticing a couple of months ago, our councilman from District 3, I think it is, started on weightier matters, started giving just a 60-second account of why he was for it or why he would be voting against it. I just want to ask, maybe consider making this something that this body does, is if there's an issue of annexation, if there's an issue of rezoning to medium or high density, if there is something that the majority of the people that fill this room are opposed to, could you, each of you, spend 60 seconds and just explain to the people, this is why I'm voting for this, in this case, annexation, or this is why I'm opposed to it? Maybe it will help us understand what you're thinking, because it seems like for the majority of the citizens, they don't get it. They don't understand why it seems like we have to annex, develop. And so maybe if you explained your vote on each of those bigger issues, it would help us understand. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak, come forward at this time. Seeing no one, I'm so sorry. I was asking if anyone else wished to speak. I don't see anyone who does, so I'm going to declare public recognition closed. And we do have 3 proclamations to present this evening. I will go to the podium and present those. The first I'm going to present are to Susan Phillips and Janet Parrish with Volunteer Behavioral Health. Is it behavior health or behavioral health? Okay, behavioral health, very good. And so I'll ask that you ladies meet me at the podium, and we'll do these 2 proclamations, and then I'll do the third. We have 2 proclamations this evening. They are related, but they're for 2 different organizations and purposes, and these ladies are going to accept because their work is very closely tied to the issues that we're discussing tonight and what these proclamations represent for our community. So the first one is Mental Health and Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. So I'm going to read you the proclamation because it shares some important data. Then I'll read you the other proclamation. Then I'm going to ask if you all would like to share some information in addition to what I do within these proclamations, because you have great data points, great insight. You work in this field, and I'm so appreciative of it and all that you do for people. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
I have the pleasure of knowing Susan for a long time, and I just met Miss Janet this evening, but I know that you all work with people in great need and in areas of great sensitivity, and appreciate the work you do. So this first one says, whereas half of the U.S. population will experience some type of mental health challenge over the course of a lifetime, and whereas mental health challenges are one of the most common health conditions affecting 1 out of 6 adults, impacting both the individual experiencing the mental health challenges and those persons who care for and love them. And whereas Sumner County ranks number 20 in Tennessee for suicidal thoughts, and whereas every day millions of people face stigma related to mental health and may feel isolated and alone, going years before receiving any help. And whereas 16% of adult Sumner County residents report experiencing poor mental health for 14 or more of the last 30 days, and whereas creating a community where everyone feels comfortable reaching out for the support they deserve is crucial to ending the stigma around mental health and suicide, and whereas recovery can and does happen, and all should know that support and help is available regardless of any individual's situation, and whereas access to support and ending the stigma is of paramount importance, and whereas the City of Gallatin wishes to enhance public awareness of suicide and mental health, now, therefore, I, Paige Brown, Mayor of the City of Gallatin, do hereby proclaim September as Mental Health and Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, and call upon our community to observe this month and encourage awareness to help end the stigma. Now, this one is specific to suicide prevention, and I think they say there's an epidemic these days, and there's not a person here that doesn't know someone who's probably lost a young person to suicide, but definitely we know people of all ages as well. So again, this has some shocking numbers in it, but I want to share it with you because I think it is powerful. Whereas suicide is one of the most disruptive and tragic events a family and a community can experience, with more than 1,100 lives lost in Tennessee each year, and an estimated 25 attempts for each suicide death. And whereas suicide is the 11th leading cause of death in Tennessee, the third leading cause of death among youth and young adults ages of 10 to 24, as well as the second leading cause of death of adults ages 35 to 44, and the sixth leading cause of death for adults 45 to 54. And whereas more than 3 lives a day are lost to suicide in Tennessee, which means we lose 21 Tennesseans each week and 97 people per month. And whereas Tennessee veterans, active duty military, and National Guardsmen face a disproportionate risk as compared to the general population, with more dying from suicide than from combat. And whereas public awareness of this tragic problem is the key to preventing further suffering and loss of life, and the risk for human self-destruction can be reduced through awareness, education, and treatment, as the highest risk for suicide is among the survivors of those who died by suicide or those who have attempted suicide. And whereas suicide prevention has been declared a state priority by the governor, and the Tennessee legislature has declared teen suicide prevention as a state priority in partnership with the Tennessee Suicide Prevention Network to implement the Tennessee Strategy for Suicide Prevention. And whereas Tennessee is a national leader in the effort to prevent suicide, being one of the first states to develop a suicide prevention and evaluation plan covering the lifespan. And whereas 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline provides 24/7 free and confidential support for people in distress, prevention and crisis resources for you or your loved ones, and best practices for professionals in the United States. And whereas the governor of Tennessee has appointed a Suicide Prevention Network Advisory Council to coordinate the implementation of the Tennessee Strategy for Suicide Prevention. And whereas the Tennessee Suicide Prevention Network is a grassroots collaboration of Tennesseans and organizations working to eliminate the stigma of suicide, educate the community about the warning signs of suicide, and ultimately reduce the rate of suicide in our state. And whereas every member of our community should understand that throughout life's struggles, we all need occasional reminder that we are all silently fighting our own battles. And whereas we encourage all Tennesseans to take the time to inquire as to the well-being of their family, their friends, and to genuinely convey their appreciation for their existence by any gesture they deem appropriate. A simple phone call, a message, a handshake, or a hug can go a long way towards helping someone realize that suicide is not the answer. And now, therefore, I, Paige Brown, Mayor of Gallatin, do hereby proclaim September 2023 as Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, and urge citizens to work to prevent suicide and to raise awareness and tolerance around all people affected by this tragedy. With that, I'm going to turn it over to you, ladies.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for this opportunity to speak tonight and to honor the ones that we have lost to suicide and their families, and also to move forward to help prevent more suicides. So one of the things that we know is if we educate people on how to recognize the signs of suicide, that prevents suicide. So one of the things that we're urging the council members, Mayor Brown, everyone present, is to get trained. So the Tennessee Suicide Prevention Network offers free training. I'm a trainer. We can get that done. But we know that if people start recognizing the symptoms, they can prevent some of the suicides that are happening. And that's something, a gesture that we can recognize the signs and learn how to walk with people through this. And not only know that someone may be suicidal, but sit with them, walk with them until they can get help. And so part of that help is calling the number 988. That will be answered by a professional who can help people walk through this, and we can save lives. So I just want to give some hope here. So we know that major depression is an epidemic, and one of the highest leading efforts to someone committing suicide is depression. So statistics have shown that only half of all Americans experiencing major depression receive treatment. So one of the other things I want to encourage is the decrease in stigma of people getting help. We also know that 80 to 90% of people who seek treatment for depression have resolved depression. So that's hope. And those are the statistics that we want to look at moving forward. So if you will join us in getting educated on how to look at the signs and symptoms of suicide and helping get people get into touch with mental health professionals so that they can improve, because we know that recovery is possible. Thank you for your time.
Guess we can do it like this. Thank you. Thank you so much. Volunteer behavioral health is a force in our community, and we are so fortunate that they are here. And Susan's been the leader in mental health in our county in so many capacities for a long time, including where I'm about to invite the next people from, which is the Sumner Prevention Coalition. And I'm going to ask Megan Griffith from the Prevention Coalition to come up. Also related to mental health is substance abuse. And so Megan, I'm going to let you introduce who else is here, and then we'll do this proclamation.
All right, thank you. I'm Megan Griffith. This is Josh Draper and Beth Gray. We're the Sumner Prevention Coalition, and we do substance abuse prevention throughout all of Sumner County. And August 31st is International Overdose Awareness Day, which, just like suicide, has become a big epidemic in our country, and specifically Tennessee and our county. And so on the 31st, which is a Thursday, 6 p.m. in front of City Hall here, we're going to have a remembrance ceremony. We're going to have a speaker that's sort of sharing her story of how overdose has touched her, and give people an opportunity to just remember those we've lost to overdose.
And I appreciate you sharing that information. I was going to ask the council for their permission, but now you're kind of stuck with allowing it, right? I think it's very worthwhile. I think it will be a powerful recognition related to overdose awareness that people will be compelled to learn from, if not attend. And we're going to have some physical demonstration that will kind of display how many people in our community are touched by overdose. So this is a shorter proclamation. It's part of why I saved it for last. But it's a very, very important one. It says, whereas the city of Gallatin does affirm and acknowledge the harm and hardship caused by drug overdose, and whereas we recognize the purpose of International Overdose Awareness Day as remembering loved ones lost to overdose and ending the stigma of drug-related deaths, and whereas we resolve to play our part in reducing the toll of overdose in our community, which claimed the lives of 93 Sumner County residents in 2021, that's the latest data available, with countless more affected forever. And whereas we affirm that the people affected by overdose are our sons and daughters, our mothers and fathers, and our brothers and sisters who deserve our love, compassion, and support. And now, therefore, I, Paige Brown, Mayor of Gallatin, do hereby proclaim August 31st, 2023 as International Overdose Awareness Day, and ask our community residents, businesses, and organizations to work together to seek out new opportunities to increase awareness and address the harms caused by drug overdose. You know, it's something I have a heart for, so I appreciate what y'all do so much. Appreciate you sharing what's coming up with that. We all know that we have serious problems in this community related to mental health, related to suicide, related to drug overdose, and with drug overdose, particularly related to fentanyl. And law enforcement's working hard, but awareness, recognition, and individuals making the efforts that you all do every single day will help turn that ship hopefully in time. So should we take a picture? So thank you. All right. Now, I just have some events to list, and then we'll get to the agenda. First, before we go any further, I want to recognize Northfield Church. I wasn't able to attend, but yesterday they opened their playground, their pickleball courts. Several people who have gone, including our own Parks and Recreation Director, David Brown, have said it's truly amazing, and they are offering these facilities to the public. And the playground is accessible for people of all abilities, which we all know how important that is after the opening of the Miracle Park here in Gallatin. And I'm just in awe, but certainly in appreciation of Northfield, who continues to invest in this community and the people of this community as their ministry. They're very generous in what they do, and they do a beautiful job, and just very, very appreciative, and can't wait to experience it in person. Do want to remind you, tomorrow's James Fenton's birthday. He's not here this evening. Maybe he's celebrating tonight. And actually, Miss Bates volunteered to be here for the park discussion, so he got the night off from the council meeting. American Red Cross Blood Drive, Civic Center on tomorrow as well, 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. A couple of tournaments happening out at parks with, we've got the Lebanon basketball golf tournament going on, a softball tournament at Triple Creek Park, and several other things coming up as well. The farmers market happens this weekend again, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Saturday. The Antique and Classic Cars of Gallatin happens again on Saturday, 4 to 8 p.m. Reminder that Labor Day is coming up. Most city offices will be closed. On the 8th is going to be Bill McCord's birthday. And then on the 1st and 2nd, which is Labor Day weekend, that Friday is going to be the rehearsal for the short takeoff and landing event, the STOL event. And then that Saturday is going to be the actual competition. As I understand, you can attend and watch the rehearsals with no charge, and then there is a fee on Saturday. And I think that will be a really great way to experience our local airport and see some really talented pilots as well. So don't forget about that. And then on the 9th is I don't know if it's the last fly-in breakfast at the Music City Executive Airport, but it's one of the last ones for the season. But that happens second Saturday of the month, 8 to 10. Those are all my comments. No, I have one more. You have a flyer in your agenda. Charter Senior Living is having an event on Monday, September 11th from 1 to 2:30. It is going to be part of their 9/11 Day of Remembrance and their ice cream social, honoring our Sumner County emergency personnel. That also prompts me to mention that our fire department will again be hosting a 9/11 remembrance ceremony here at City Hall at 9 a.m. on that day. And then our fire chief, Jeff Beeman, is going to be the speaker at the Chamber of Commerce luncheon, also with a 9/11 theme on that day. And then Alexander Funeral Home will do their remembrance event as well on that day. So a lot will be happening on the 11th too. Now we'll go to the regular agenda. And Mr. Carter, I'll start with you with Clearview Park update. I believe you have an introduction to make.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Mayor. So I just want to thank everyone for their support, including the council and the mayor, with the project that's going on for the Clearview community. And with that being said, I'm going to also thank Mr. Jacob Cherry and the Wold Architect firm and have him to come up and give his presentation with what we have come to for the first phase of updating Clearview Park.
Well, thanks for inviting me back. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to work with you all and give you an update on what we have come to for this first phase. So just a quick recap. I spoke really quickly last time, so I think I'm going to slow down a little bit and just walk you through. So maybe if there's time for questions, if anyone needs to interject, just let me know. So just as a reminder, we had over, I'd say there's 60 or so people represented here that were involved in the community engagement meetings. We had approximately 5 meetings, including input sessions for non-English speaking people who would like to provide their input as to the usage of the park. We had several meetings which Mayor Brown attended, Representative Carter was there, and we had a number of representatives also from the council. Ms. Eileen came, and then we had Director of Parks and Recreation, Mr. David Brown, also joined us for a number of those meetings. We looked at Clearview Park today, and we presented these to the council. We talked about the existing conditions on site, the deterioration of a number of site features, including the picnic pavilions, the old abandoned court, grading issues that persist at the basketball courts, which have been resurfaced. We also presented the condition of the softball bleachers and the softball field. and then the new and existing playground equipment, the walking trail, the monument, things that had personal significance to the community, and then looked at the parking lots as well, which are in a significant state of disrepair. And then, of course, the community building itself, which is about 1,200 square feet, essentially a one-room building with a small kitchenette, bathrooms, and then a small storage room. Through all of our input sessions, we came to a comprehensive vision for all of the improvements that could be implemented at Clearview Park. We presented this in detail last time and walked through the parking improvements, grading improvements at the basketball court, replacement bleachers, improvements to the multi-purpose field, potentially new pickleball or tennis courts. We showed the location of the new playground equipment, talked about lighting improvements that could be made for the walking track, and then some spectator options to try and enhance the usage of the park. So all of this was focused on how you can generate more activity on the park, have increased usage, and fulfill the needs of the community. We presented a line-by-line estimate cost for each of those improvements, which when we presented the kind of do-all option was above the budget that the city has allocated for the park improvements here. So what we came to in a meeting with Mayor Brown, Representative Carter, Director David Brown, and Ms. Rosemary Bates from Economic Development was a scope of work for Phase 1 improvements that meets the current budget that is allocated for the improvements at the park. So we go through that. That is parking lot improvements. Rather than doing 2 parking lots, we focus on 1 parking lot immediately adjacent to the new community building. It also includes a line item for drainage improvements at the basketball court. So we've scaled back on that and tried to kind of take 2 birds with 1 stone there. We talked about replacement pavilions to try and enhance the outdoor activity, make sure that the facilities provided are safe. Multi-purpose field improvements, there was a lot of feedback about them not being particularly usable because of their current conditions with divots, holes, grading issues for flat field of play. So we've included spectator seating for that field and improvements to that field. There's 2 line items there. And then without compromising on the community's vision for the new community building, we've also got that allocated. So that construction cost subtotal there is put forward with the design services fees. There were questions about what we had last time, what has already been spent, and what does our compensation structure look like for that. Our agreement with the city has 6.5% times the cost of construction. We have worked to try and, because we feel invested in this project and we want to see it go forward, we have made some concessions on our end that will try and help meet the project budget. What we've done is we've included the community engagement fees in our 6.5% cost of construction. That is typically something that is outside of the scope of this. And we've also taken civil engineering services, which are typically added services, not included in our basic services, and we have brought that in. So effectively, with those 2 things combined, we're at approximately 5% of the cost of construction would be our portion of what we would be allocated for design fees on this, because we feel it's very important. We also had conversations about what contingency should be maintained and what fees are typically associated with a project of this type that are borne by the owner. Those are typically your plan review fees, your site development fees, and then any kind of building permit and associated fees of that nature. So we've taken, and the city has essentially agreed to review and provide their portion of that as a waived structure. So when you look at the total project cost and project budget, we still have in that approximately 6.5% contingency, which is good for a new building of this type. Generally, I think the last time I was up here when I presented, you could look at soft costs, which included your contingencies and your design fees, as something around 12.5%. Right now, we're at 13 in this bottom line. So all of that said, we have a Phase 1 improvement scope that meets your budget and still allocates a project contingency. Any questions?
Mr. Chair, I want to say that I feel like you kind of, sorry, I turned it off a minute ago. I just want to say thank you. I feel like you put a lot of yourself into this and that you have made a lot of, well, all of you have, worked to make sure that this can happen as much as can possibly happen in there within the scope of the budget. And I'm kind of excited about how you kind of relooked at some things and said, well, I think we can do this. And Mr. Brown said, well, maybe we can do this. And we came up with some ideas of how we could phase it, but really get a lot more done in the first phase than we were thinking we would be able to. And so I appreciate the way that you helped us find a path, and I think it's a good path. And that's what really makes me happy.
I know that the residents really wanted the building, so this is going to be in there. That's
Well,
awesome.
And I think he could have gotten really frustrated with us, particularly me, and you did not, and for that I'm very grateful. So,
The building will have a kitchen in it.
Yes, sir.
Does that include the cooking equipment?
it's not going to have cooking, it's a catering kitchen, so it's not a full kitchen.
It will be an outfitted kitchen, so we don't have a separate line item for FF&E, which is furnishings, fixtures, and equipment that would typically be included for a large project. That would be, because of the scale, not necessarily scaled back version of this building, but because it's not a particularly complex building, we're really talking about tables and chairs. There was a request for stage risers for small community presentations in that space. There are further discussions that we're going to have with the Parks Department about operations of this building. So there will be some spaces that potentially are modified, but the kitchen itself was an essential component, and we looked at it as its ability to support the community activities both within the building and on the site. So it will function as a catering kitchen, which is essentially a warming kitchen, and a concession stand to support youth sport activities.
I think as we outfit the building, there'll probably be some AV equipment we want in there and some other things as we go along. Ms. Bates has stepped forward. You want to add something?
I just
pertinent,
wanted
don't
to
you?
share that unless y'all object, we already have a contract with Wold that includes them moving to the design phase to get it into construction drawings and going through the planning approval process. So we didn't know if at this point, since it meets the budget, if you felt compelled to give it formal approval to do what he presented tonight, or if we can just go ahead and move to the next step with Jacob and his team to get the construction drawings designed so that we can go through planning and put it out to bid.
Need a motion to send it?
I feel like,
Motion to send it on?
okay, I was going to say, without objection, I feel like we're in process and the money's already committed, but if y'all want to form, we have a motion and a second. Councilman Carter, Councilman Hayes. Any further discussion?
Okay, so just to clarify, are we done tonight, or do we need a further resolution or ordinance?
I'm going to move forward with the
Move forward,
plans with
council.
this.
Okay, thank you.
Wait. We said different things simultaneously. He wants to move forward to council. I'm saying just move forward with this, so it's up to y'all.
It doesn't matter
What's
to
your
me.
motion?
I mean, if we
You
can
you
do
already
what-
have the money in the budget, so you don't have to
Motion
vote
to
for any
move
more
forward
money.
with
Yeah.
planning.
If we can do what she said, that's fine. That's fine.
I would agree with that, too.
Okay, Councilman Juvance?
Yes, I just have a question on the 1.4 for the building. Doesn't that the old building is going to have to go? That included in that?
Yes,
The
we would have
demolition of the
demolition.
building?
We would have demolition of site elements as part of this construction project, yes. Didn't line item that one out. Yeah, that's.
Thank you, sir.
I'll roll along. If everyone in favor says aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Roll on. Thank you so much, Mr. Terry. We appreciate you. All right, let's move along to item number 2, which is Parks and Recreation Director David Brown. It's for ordinance 02308-48, appropriating funds in the amount of $112,721.13 for storm damage repair.
Guess this is where we had insurance claims back in March, and we finally got our money to proceed on repairing the storm damages.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to move ahead to council by Councilman Hayes, second by Vice Mayor Love. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no.
We will have more later.
Move along. Item 3 is ordinance 02308-47, appropriating $11,500 in donations from American Kennel Club and Nashville Kennel Club for Police K-9. Chief Bandy.
Yes, this, I think it's been a couple of weeks. This has happened pretty fast, so we've now been approved, and we'd like to buy our puppy, so.
Motion to send it on.
Motion by Vice Mayor Love, second by
Second.
Councilman Juvance. Any questions, any discussion? This is ordinance 02308-47. All in favor of moving on to council, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Passes unanimously. Item 4 is Resolution R2308-68, authorizing the Gallatin Police Department to accept the state law enforcement hiring, training, and recruitment program grant. Chief Bandy.
Again, this is something that we have talked about in the past, but this is no cost to the city. It's something the state of Tennessee is doing to try to help us with our recruitment and retention.
Motion to
Send it on.
Second.
I heard motion by Vice Mayor Love, second by Councilman Carter. Any discussion, any questions? Okay, it's Resolution R2308-68. To move on to council, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say no. Passes unanimously. Item 5 is Resolution R2308-73, authorizing the Gallatin Police Department to accept the Keep Tennessee Beautiful Law Enforcement Grant. Chief?
Yes, again, I'll start with no cost to the city, and this will help us to, again, have officers out there trying to enforce this. Plus also, when we have cleanup crews, that pays the overtime for them to protect.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Hayes, second by Vice Mayor Love. Yeah, it's pretty easy when you start out with no cost to the city. All in favor of moving ahead, Resolution R2308-73, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. It passes on to council unanimously.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Chief Bandy. Item number 6 is Resolution R2308-72, appointing James Hodges as board member of the Gallatin Economic Development Agency Board, and for that, Rosemary Bates from the Economic Development Agency.
I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about it.
So moved. Send it on.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Hayes, second by Councilman Juvance. Any questions, any
Is this
discussion?
James Hodges from Hodges Group?
Yes.
Yes, the elder.
I always call, he's Jim Hodges to most of us, so. Okay. It's Resolution R2308-72. All in favor of moving on, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Passed unanimously. And finally, this evening, we have a presentation on United Way. The City of Gallatin has been partnering with United Way for several years, and we've made progress with our employee participation. But when we attended the breakfast just recently, there was some really compelling data presented, and I thought that it might be helpful for us to see some of that. And it also might entice our employees to participate more in the United Way program. And so Jill Russell is here from our Human Resources Office, and she's going to introduce our special United Way guest.
Thank you, Mayor Brown and Council. I just wanted to introduce Michelle Groves, and I didn't catch your name.
Erin Birch.
Erin Birch, and they're going to show you a little PowerPoint presentation, and then after that, if you have any questions for either of them, they'll be able to answer those.
Thank you so much. Mayor Brown, would it be all right if Erin passes out some packets to the commissioners? We probably will reference those.
Certainly.
We'll reference those later in the presentation, but that way you'll go ahead and have those handy. Thank you so much for having us. We appreciate the invitation to come. As Mayor Brown said, she and your HR Director, Courtney Russell, and Councilman Carter attended our Community Impact Breakfast earlier this month. So I don't want to neglect to mention, she's being very modest, but the City of Gallatin actually won an award at that event for the most raised in the government category. So I want to congratulate you and thank you for that. And we're very grateful for the support of the City of Gallatin. So as she said at the breakfast, we spoke about some needs in our community, and we wanted to share some of that with you tonight. So I'll go right to it. The COVID-19 pandemic was a global health and economic crisis. It upended life as we knew it 3 years ago, claimed the lives of millions of people, and it unleashed a storm of competing economic forces, which was a phenomenon rarely seen. So among those in the eye of the storm was a group we call ALICE, Asset Limited, Income Constrained, and Employed. Alice is basically your family member, a friend, a neighbor. They are our childcare providers, waiters, retail clerks, and gas station attendants. They are the engine that keeps our economy running, and they earn above the federal poverty level, but because their wages can't keep up with the rising cost of necessities, they're forced to make impossible choices to try to make ends meet. Now, our newest report, which is Alice and the Cross Currents, is based on 2021 data, which is the latest we have available. The Alice study uses an Alice household survival budget, which calculates the cost of essentials in our county measured against U.S. Census Bureau income data. From this, we determined the Alice survival threshold, which is the minimum average income that a household needs to cover its essentials. Living below the Alice threshold are those in poverty as determined by the FPL, and those who are above the FPL but making less than what it actually costs to live in this area. So in Sumner County, as of 2021, there are 42% of our households who are living below the Alice threshold and unable to afford the basics. 8% of them live in poverty, and about 4 times that, 34%, are in the category of Alice. Now, for a visual of what it means to be Alice, federal poverty level for a family of 4 as of 2021 was $26,500. The reality of what it costs for a family of 4 with an infant and a preschooler both in childcare to live here in Sumner County was $76,332, which creates a gap of almost $50,000. Now, throughout the pandemic, economic forces such as job disruption, inflation, wage increases, and pandemic assistance worked both with and against each other. Initially, costs for many basics declined, but then as the pandemic continued, disruptions to the supply chain and higher wages to retain workers pushed the prices up across the board by 7.5% annually across the U.S. in 2021, compared to 3% annually in the prior 10 years, straining those Alice households even further. Now, at the same time, there were forces that benefited household income for many below the Alice threshold. For instance, those wage and salary increases meant higher paychecks for Alice households and those in poverty. Now, in addition, there were some various temporary pandemic supports that provided a much-needed cushion for those struggling households. SNAP or food stamp benefits were increased. There were COVID rent relief packages available. Unemployment benefits increased and were extended for longer periods of time and to workers who previously hadn't qualified, like self-employed and gig workers. And then there were economic stimulus payments as well as expanded child tax credits. And these measures did make a difference, helping to mitigate the financial impact of the pandemic on our Sumner County households. In fact, between 2018 and 2021, there was actually a decline in the percent of Alice households in all but one of Sumner County's zip codes. Westmoreland continues to have the highest percent of those who are financially unstable. They increased from 59% in 2018 to 60% in 21. But here in Gallatin, we went from 47% under the Alice threshold to 45% in 2021. However, these numbers don't convey the whole problem. While all the emergency measures to help our economy did mitigate the financial crisis facing those under the Alice threshold, it wasn't enough to get them financially stable. So in 2021, a family of 4 with both a preschooler and an infant in childcare and 2 adults working full-time as a cashier and a salesperson, the two of the most common jobs in Tennessee, earned $48,630. This meant that after the child tax credits, they fell almost $28,000 short of the more than $76,000 needed to afford the basics in Sumner County. Now, for households that struggle to make ends meet across all demographic groups, the crux of the problem is a mismatch between earnings and the cost of basics. So despite an increase in the median wage among the 20 most common jobs in the state in 2021, 70% of those jobs still paid less than $20 per hour. So earning less than $20 an hour wasn't enough for many workers to keep pace with the rising costs of essentials. As a result, many of these top jobs still have a substantial percentage of workers who were either Alice or in poverty. For example, 54% of the more than 50,000 Tennesseans working in fast food in 2021 were below the Alice threshold. 95% of those top jobs made less than what it costs for a family of 4 with an infant and preschooler to afford the basics. In fact, 70% of these top jobs could not even afford what it costs for a single adult to live in Sumner County. Yet none of them made below the FPL for a single adult, which is $12,880, in case you were wondering, meaning that they would not qualify for most public assistance. And to figure out how they compared to the household survival budget, we multiplied their hourly rate by 2,000 hours, which is full-time at 40 hours per week for 50 hours or 50 weeks of the year. But many of the jobs on this list, like the retail and the fast food, can't always get 40 hours a week. So that would put them even further behind from being able to make ends meet. Now, one thing we want to clarify when we talk about our ALICE survival budget is that it is basic. And when we're talking about the $76,000 for that family of 4, it's based on the minimum cost of household basics to live and work in a modern economy. It's very conservative, it's not sustainable, and it's certainly not a recommended budget. So I'm going to show you what I mean by that. In the ALICE household survival budget, housing encompasses rent and utilities. Rent is based on HUD's fair market, or FMR, which is generally the 40th percentile of gross rents. So for a single adult, the survival budget looks at the FMR for getting an efficiency apartment. For a head of household with a child, or for a household with 2 adults, it looks at the FMR for a 1-bedroom apartment. Now that means a single parent with a child has to share a bedroom with their child. For a family of 3 or 4 people, it's based on the FMR for a 2-bedroom apartment. So the practical application of this is that housing at the 40th percentile fills up quickly, and it's often not available for those who need it most, which means that oftentimes ALICE families have to pick something more expensive than what is included in this budget. Now, utility costs include the cost of natural gas, electricity, fuel, oil, water, those kinds of things. The cost is adjusted by the number of people in the household. The practical application is that the cost of utilities is often higher for low-income households, many of which don't have the resources to maintain or update furnaces, air conditioners, water heaters, so their units are less efficient, they use more energy, and they're costlier. Now, the child care budget is based on registered family child care, which is basically someone running a daycare out of their home. It classifies infants as 0 to 2, preschool as 3 and 4, and school age as 5 to 12. So children under 5 are assumed that they would need full-time year-round care, which is 5 days per week for 50 weeks per year. School-age children are based on the assumption they need part-time care throughout the year, and when available, the costs are presented at the 75th percentile. Now, the practical application is that even though family child care homes are the least expensive option, there's usually not as much availability for them. So that means that ALICE families often have to end up traveling farther, sacrificing quality, or paying more than what was in that budget. And it's a challenge for them to find care for their children over the summer for 5 to 12-year-olds. The next item is the food budget, and it's based on the thrifty level, which is the lowest of 4 levels of the USDA's food plan. The thrifty food plan was designed to meet nutritional requirements of a healthy diet. However, it includes foods that need a lot of home prep time with little waste and a lot of skill in buying and preparing food. So for those who lack that time and skill, these costs are probably going to be underestimated for their food budget. When it comes to transportation, we don't really have viable public transportation. A lot of options for that in Sumner County, so the budget is based on car transportation. It includes the minimum liability car insurance, licensing fees, gas, oil, vehicle maintenance, not major repairs, and depreciation for 1 car. The budget does not include lease payments or car loan payments because most ALICE families drive a car at least 10 years old. And the practical application is that for many low-income households, car insurance rates are even higher than what was budgeted because of low credit scores. And maintenance costs, which are provided from AAA, are based on new car ownership, but these families are driving older cars, so their expenses are likely higher. Now, in technology, the cell phone has become an essential part of working in the U.S., so the cost of a smartphone is included in the household budget. It's for each adult, the cost is based on the cheapest plan that's reported by Consumer Reports. But because of the dramatic increase in a need for connectivity and remote working, learning, and socializing options during the pandemic, the budget did expand the category to the 10 gig plan monthly for each adult in the household. Now, the budget does not include the added expense of the phone itself. And the practical application of this is that many ALICE families can't afford home internet as well as cell phone service, so that can create a disadvantage for remote working and learning needs. The healthcare estimate is made up of 2 separate components: health insurance premiums and out-of-pocket costs, which include copayments, medical services, prescription drugs, and medical supplies not covered by health insurance. The household survival budget includes average costs, but that greatly underestimates the cost for some families. Studies show that low-income households are more likely to have someone in fair or poor health, and that adds 30 to 60% to their family health care spending, even if they have employer-based coverage. So to account for this, the budget includes a poor health multiplier using a conservative 30% increase for out-of-pocket costs. Now, the practical application is that healthcare is the largest variation in the budget. Those who are healthy will incur fewer costs. Those who have somebody in their family that's seriously ill can have significantly higher costs. So this is also based on employer-sponsored health coverage because that's still the most common out there. But you have to keep in mind a lot of these ALICE jobs don't provide health insurance, and so they're having to get their own or do without insurance altogether. For taxes, the budget includes federal taxes, payroll taxes, and it does include the tax credits from federal and state. And then there is a miscellaneous category because that's standard practice in estimating household expenses. Ours is 10%. It provides some recognition of the conservative nature of this budget and gives some a little bit of wiggle room for some of those practical application items we mentioned that might increase their costs. But it is an item meant to cover basic overruns. It's not meant for savings. That's the practical application here. It still leaves the family very vulnerable if they have unexpected expenses. Now, this year, our ALICE information included something to differentiate between the household survival budget and something we're calling the household stability budget. So from what I just told you, you just saw how difficult it would be to maintain that survival budget. The stability budget is a more financially stable, less austere standard of living. So some of the key differences is that for housing, instead of the 40th percentile for rent, it uses the median rent. And for two-parent families, instead of rent, it includes a mortgage for moderate house because homeownership is greater financial stability and it's often less expensive than renting. For childcare, instead of having to use those home daycares, it uses licensed and accredited daycare centers, which is more availability. And then for food, instead of the thrifty food plan, it uses the moderate food plan and allows for a little bit of eating out. For transportation, it allows for 2 cars instead of just 1. For healthcare costs, it removes that poor health multiplier. For technology, it adds an allowance for them to have home internet in addition to cell phone service. And the biggest thing is it does include 10% in the budget for a savings category. So here's what the side-by-side comparison of the ALICE survival budget versus the stability budget for our family of 4 with a preschooler and an infant would look like. You may notice that the housing category actually shows less in the stability budget than the survival budget. It's $1,400 instead of $1,580 because, like we said, a mortgage is often cheaper than renting. But the problem is that many ALICE families, it's very difficult, if not impossible, for them to save enough money for a down payment, and they often don't have the best credit, so they get higher interest rates and sometimes struggle to even get a loan on their own. So for this family to be in a financially stable position, they would need to earn $104,000 and $104,000 plus. So that would be a difficult position for them. So ALICE struggles are real, and part of our mission is to ensure that ALICE families know there is help available. So we partner with 35 agencies to meet the needs of ALICE. So in housing, we have help centers that all over the county that provide emergency assistance to families facing financial crisis and help them keep a roof over their heads and keep their heat and air on. We also have programs that help families move towards home ownership and provide critical home repairs to seniors and vets and disabled. Plus, we have partners who offer assistance to the unhoused. Under the child care, we have partners that offer child care to infants and preschoolers on a sliding scale, and we have partners that offer free after school and summer care for school-age children. For food, our help centers also have food banks available, and we have programs to deliver Meals on Wheels to seniors and send home backpacks of food with school-age children so they don't go hungry over the weekend. In transportation, we have partners that provide transportation to seniors. In technology, on our website is information on our Get Help page that helps people sign up for assistance to pay for internet and get laptop computers. For healthcare, we have partners that provide medical care on a sliding scale to those who are working but uninsured. For taxes, we offer an online service with a toll-free helpline to let families do their taxes for free, including self-employed and gig workers, and to ensure that they're getting all the tax credits they deserve. Plus, we have partners who meet educational, mental, and physical and emotional needs for a variety of specialized groups, including those facing trauma. So before I go, I just want to leave you with one more thing, some tools to help Alice and those in need. If you click the QR code on the screen, it takes you to our website, unitedwaysumner.org, to our Get Help page. The top half of that page has all the information on our free programs and services, including how to connect to 211, which is our 24/7 resource referral line. It also includes information about the Tennessee Benefit Kitchen, which is a cell phone text screener people can use to find out if they might qualify for public benefits they didn't know about. And there's also a listing of all of our partner agencies along with their contact information and the description of services they provide. So I encourage you to bookmark that page and save it so the next time you talk to a neighbor or someone in need, you have that information. If you want more on Alice, you can go to our website at unitedwaysumner.org/Alice. We don't have our 2023 reports posted on the website yet, but if you follow us on Facebook at United Way Sumner, we'll let you know when those are available. So thank you so much for your time. Are there any questions that we can answer for you?
Got any questions, Ms. Groves?
Yes.
I noticed that on the housing, that you have some agencies that you use. I found out the other day from Habitat that they have homes that they want to build, but they don't have the people qualified to get into the homes.
Yes.
You work with people to do that?
We work with Habitat for Humanity. They're one of our partners. And yes, one of the things that they do is they have the program where they can build homes, help people build homes. And one of the things we fund is their down payment match program to help people to try to come up with the down payment money. But one of the other requirements that they have is people have to put some sweat equity into that.
Right.
So I don't know exactly where, I'm not familiar with what you're talking about and where they stand on qualified applicants, but we do work with them to try to refer folks to them to see if they might qualify for that program.
Right. It was just amazing to me that there were homes that they can build now, but the qualifications weren't there.
Yeah, and the families do have to be able to sustain that home. They don't want to
Yes.
build homes for a family that's going to end up losing it because they can't keep it. So there is some income requirements that they have to be able to maintain and stay in that home and not lose it once they get it. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. It's eye-opening, it's actually scary. My question is, what can we do as a body to help you?
Thank you. Yes, that's an excellent question. So one of the main things we ask of the community, and especially of our business and policymakers, is to please consider this data when you make decisions. Think about that 42% of our county is struggling. We look at Sumner County, a lot of people think of it as an affluent area, and they don't realize that so many people are struggling to pay the bills. And because of the latest rise in inflation, we have families who never were in this position before. They were fine, they were getting by, but now with everything going up, they're finding it harder and harder to pay those bills. So we ask all of our policymakers, all of our business leaders, think about this information as you're offering workplace benefits, as you're inviting businesses and home ownership options into the community. Make sure that there is affordable, attainable housing for people. We have one of the groups that's struggling the hardest is the ones who are led by members that are 18 to 25. I think it was something like 88% or something like that of them are in the under the Alice threshold. And so that's why we see a lot of those single adults moving back home because they can't afford to live out on their own. So we're just asking people, first of all, to help us educate the public. We want to make sure that some of these folks who don't realize there's help out there or they feel like it's beneath them to accept help because they've never had to before, we want to take that stigma away and make sure that they understand there's a lot of people in that same boat with you, and it's perfectly fine for you to use that help so that you can get caught up or you can get a leg up and get to where you can save for a down payment and you can do some of the things we're talking about.
You do a beautiful job of going through a lot of data clearly and quickly.
Thank you. I
And
know
I
it's a lot.
appreciate it. I thought it would be very enlightening for everyone to hear this information. I think we all, as we ponder what you put before us this evening, I think we all recognize that these are people we know, these are family members, these are a lot of city workers, they're people that we encounter every single day. And I appreciate what the United Way does. I mean, you're one of the organizations and your partner agencies that stand in the gap to help people in our community when they are lacking things that they need. We are strong in that we have the United Way, we have your partner agencies, we have so many wonderful churches here, and a lot of other nonprofits that may not necessarily be United Way affiliated that are doing those things to help folks when they need it. But
And you have those
but-
packets. There's information in there.
And, oh, another thing I wanted to say is 211 is a resource that we give out all the time here at the City of Gallatin. So just as a local government, being able to refer people somewhere is so very, very helpful. And so we're grateful that that was instituted several years ago and that we can direct people there. But I think the data also shows us, you know, what we're facing with affordable housing and why people keep saying, don't build townhomes, please build townhomes, don't build townhomes, please build townhomes, because that's the affordable path for a lot of things. Yeah, and the rents and supply and basic economics, supply and demand. I think our housing nationwide, I guess, has gone up substantially, but more in Middle Tennessee than a lot of places because of the high demand here. But I appreciate the information so very much. Finally, I would encourage you all in your own businesses to engage with United Way, to contribute personally and help and if not to the United Way, to one of their agencies, but yeah.
And they can designate. So we have a lot of workplace giving campaigns that when they donate to us, they say, I want it to go to the specific area or the specific agency, and we can do that as well.
And I'm so proud that we have employees, probably some of the least able to give, who are giving. It's very humbling when you see, you know, people contributing that probably are struggling themselves. And we have a lot of kind and generous and compassionate employees with the City of Gallatin. Thank you for recognizing us.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think Jill and the rest of the HR team are fired up to do even better next year. So we
Awesome,
intend to.
yes. We're already talking about your new campaign, so
Yes,
thank you.
thank you.
Thank you all so much. Please feel free to contact us. Our contact information's in the packet if you want to learn more. Thank you.
All right, that concludes the regular agenda. It brings us to other business. I have just a couple of things. One, I wanted to see if anyone had any objection to what we were talking about having on the front lawn on the 31st related to the overdose awareness event. It's just going to be probably something representing the number of overdose deaths in Sumner County and then a short program, like she said, using in front of City Hall.
I think it's a great idea.
What is it? It's just a display that will be out there during the day?
There's a
Well, we'll probably leave it out there for a few days. We were talking about some different ideas of what we could do. I mean, you've seen the pinwheels that CASA does. It'd be something like that to demonstrate how many people are lost to overdose. And then a program also associated. They're also working on a young adult or even a student education special program one night. They do a lot all the time, but this is special related to overdose awareness. But unless you have any objection to using City Hall in that way on that date, we will move forward, okay? And then the other thing, and this is something I do want y'all to vote on if you're willing to, the Stoll event, the short takeoff and landing event happening on the 1st and 2nd, they have asked for support from us related to trash. I told them that I felt like this body would be supportive because it will bring people to Sumner County, and I think that is our way to contribute. It's kind of cavalier for me to say our way to contribute when it's going to be Public Works employees actually there helping with the trash, and that's really what they've asked for.
Are you expecting a large crowd?
It's really unknown. You know, first time event, think it will grow over time. I think he had expected 1,200 attendees. Kind of what they've said to us.
So am
I
I.
think,
Motion?
Second.
Second. Councilman Schwab.
yeah, I think people are going to show up. And already told Jeff that today on the phone. The board wanted to thank Jeff for the job he has been doing on the advertising for the project. He has been doing a fantastic job on that. Yeah, the board is really excited about that project. So we hope that it's going to become a yearly thing. So it's going to be the first one. Hopefully people show up, and I think it's affordable. It's not that expensive. It's going to be food truck, and it's going to be pretty fun. So I'm all for helping as much as we can.
I think Chad Hall has done a tremendous event kind of getting engaged with this group and getting them to come to our community. And we did make the decision to let Jeff help with the advertising because we do feel like it's a tourism draw and there's no individual that's making money off of this. This is a community event bringing tourists to our community, which will be good for the airport, good for education, and good for our local businesses. So all in favor of providing that support, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Now, those were my two things. We will move now to department head reports. I know that Chief Beeman has put a resolution on your desk, and so he's going to come up and ask that of you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Sorry for the late notice. We received notice of a grant opportunity through the Department of Transportation for their Hazardous Materials Emergency Preparedness Program grant. This is managed by TEMA, and what we've identified through the grant application is to seek reimbursement for hazmat training that we'll conduct throughout the year. We're not asking for any additional funding to our budget, but to get permission to apply for reimbursement at 75% of our costs.
Motion.
Second. Motion by Councilman Fan, second by Vice Mayor Love. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. We'll move on to council next week. Thank you.
Mayor, if I could, just
Yeah.
like the, yes, sir.
Sorry, Chief, I was probably going to say what you were going to say, so go ahead.
I was just going to update the council about our EMS response vehicle. We're calling it Squad 1. It looks like we're shooting for Tuesday, September 5th to place it into service here at Fire Station 1. It will respond to what we call our routine medical calls. Instead of sending fire apparatus, we'll send an SUV with 2 personnel to respond to that to save the cost on what it takes for an apparatus to travel versus an SUV. And it's going to allow us to learn from this so we can adopt best practices to look at expanding this to other fire stations in the city in the near future. We'll have the vehicle back from the shop. They're doing a once over, but I apologize. We had best laid plans, but getting new vehicles in takes a long time, and getting equipment in sometimes takes even longer. I about ran out of patience, but we've got all the stars to line up now, and Tuesday, September 5th is when we're going to place a vehicle in service. And I'm here to answer any questions if you have those as well.
Chief, I'd come back to the resolution you gave us. You're on a time crunch for that, yeah? When do you have to?
We have to submit it by September 15th.
Okay. I wanted to make sure we had time to send it to the next council.
Thank
Have a
you,
good
sir.
evening. Thank you.
Any other department heads have anything this evening? Seeing none. Any other member of this body have other business I didn't ask? Go ahead, Mr. Johns.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to let you know first, the County Commission yesterday gave an update on the downtown parking. They say they're planning on having it open by late April. You know, we regularly ask about it, so they say they think it's going to be done by late April for the downtown parking. Yeah, I have another one. That was just an update. I want to thank Rachel for sending us the ARPA grant. I want to come back to that because when I voted for the grant, my understanding is that we were following the county lead. I understand Rachel told me we had more chance to get that grant if we were applying at the city. And I understand that, but when I was looking at the application, there was a match in the grant for $1 million. And we never talk about that. So I was wondering who's going to pay for that, if that's going to be shared by all the cities.
And that match comes from money already designated by the county, is my understanding. Right, Mr. Kellogg? Yeah, they already have that money. So that will be that match.
And if we, because we're talking about all working together, you were at that meeting, Mr. Kellogg was at the meeting when the county passed a resolution I was reading the Gallatin News, and the Gallatin News title said that we bypass the county commission. So I think that's not, I don't think that the idea of this body to bypass the county commission. So I will, I plan on bringing a resolution was going to mirror the county resolution, because I think we are today that people are in need, and I want to make sure that the same way that the county did, that it's actually the people who are in need who are going to receive the water first. So I will talk to Susan next week and see if I can arrive with something I can present to that body on the next work session. Because I think we need, if we're talking that we work together, we need to work together and follow their lead.
Well, we are working together, and I think that we all have done the right thing. The county, and I did not say anything about bypass. I don't know if you were saying I said something about bypassing the county. I didn't.
No, I said the Gallatin News.
Okay,
That
well,
was
that's
in
on the
paper.
Gallatin newspaper.
Yeah,
I think,
but that's- that's what we read.
The county put out some expectations that because the grant deadline, there was not the opportunity to even examine. I mean, frankly, I don't think that any of the things that, either of the things that they were asking would even be things that the city of Gallatin could do. So not going to complicate our grant application and the chance for people who have had water insecurity for decades to not have a chance, because this is a once in a lifetime chance for people to have water security that have never had it. And I feel very passionately about that. And I don't think that any of the entities involved are going to not get it to the people who need it. I mean, that's the whole goal of this. And not only does it provide to the people who need it, it provides redundancy in case of a crisis somewhere down the road. I feel very good about the direction where we're going. I'll feel even better if we are successful in the grant. And I don't know what any kind of resolution is going to do on our end, because we're replacing, we're just putting, we're not supplying anybody within our service area. We're supplying outside of our service area. So.
I can comment on that. I lived in that area, District 1, for over 20 years. I know firsthand exactly what the challenges are with the citizens not having water, having to get up early in the morning and go break ice to get water to the house before they go to work, and then coming home in the evening and doing the same thing. And then also some people are drinking water out of wells that are really not, the quality of that water's not really that good. When we got money back in 2006 or 7, we walked the area, got people to sign up to apply for the water grant in that area, and there was a lot of work that was done, but we only got so much money, and we tried to make sure that we could supply as many houses with what limited funds that we had. But back in the day, also Westmoreland pitched in on that, somewhat City of Gallatin, and we was able to start moving some water lines in that area. But there's a lot of people out there that something as simple in life is just having the availability of water that they don't have. And, I felt when I heard this coming about, I felt it was a very good thing to repair some of the water lines that are going in that area, and then also being able to service some people in that area. I wasn't looking at it as a standpoint of bringing in a herd more people to live in that area. I was just looking at it to help the people that already been living there.
Right. And I think, I heard it said, and one of the things that really frustrated with me was this conversation that somehow it was to help Gallatin grow more, to let these other communities grow, which certainly I think some growth might help some of the smaller communities, but not our decision to make. But truly, this is not challenges brought about by growth. It's challenges brought about by one community drawing their water out of a creek. It's brought about by small systems that have an economy of scale that does not provide the maintenance that's needed to be a fortified system for the best return on the ratepayers' money. And so I think that, in doing this, we're going to be able to fortify existing systems and provide water where they've always had a challenge getting it. And yes, I guess it does open some capacity for growth, but they're still limited in those areas by sewer and other, capacity needs related to their other utilities. So, I mean, that's what those communities will do in time, but it's nothing for Gallatin.
Also, I think that this will help is there's a lot of leakage. Am I saying this wrong, David? We're losing a
That's
lot
what
of
I'm
water.
talking about by fortifying, because
Sure.
there's a lot of water going down the road that's getting
Even
lost
though
along the way.
that in the area I lived on top of a hill, so you would have to turn up the pump station to get water up on top of that mountain where I live. But if you turned it up too much, it'd blow the lines apart because they were so dilapidated. So a lot of this will correct a lot of stuff also.
They're just small systems that don't have, the people or the level of money to invest in maintenance like they need to. So, anyone else?
Thank you, Sean. But that's exactly the point. We need to make sure that the water goes to the people who need it first and not get diluted on a way so the people at the end of the line stay at the same level they are now. And that's my point.
That's what we're doing, isn't it?
I mean, the end of the line is the people that need it the most. But along the way, to get that water there, we have to fortify existing lines and process. And David Kellogg can answer questions far better than I can, but did I say anything wrong? Okay. Okay, very good. Very good. Anybody else with any other business? All right. Are you ready? Motion to adjourn by Councilwoman George, second by Councilman Hayes.
Yes.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Ladies and gentlemen, have a lovely evening. It's 7:21, not too late for dinner.
I think we've all got allergies in here. Yeah. Don't you? Yes.